Hi, I'm Ryan Hunter, and this is Kalispell Connections, a program where I interview local community leaders about issues important to the community. And with me today is Hilary Shaw, the Executive Director of the Abbey Shelter. Hi, Hilary.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah. The first question, I guess, is just tell us what is the service that Abbey Shelter provides in the community for survivors of domestic violence.
Great. Sounds like an easy place to start. So the Abbey Shelter is the primary service provider for victims and survivors of domestic and sexual violence in our community and in our county. And the special thing about us is that we are so much more than just a shelter. Our largest serving program is our legal advocacy. So we help people in court with their orders of protection. We also do a lot of mental health counseling. We operate a 24-hour helpline so people can reach out at any time. We do our emergency shelter, and then we also have community education where we do prevention and outreach into the community. So in all, I like to just use my hand to say that we have 5 programs at our organization. Helpline is the gateway, court advocacy, counseling, shelter, and community outreach. So describes in a nutshell what we do over at the Abbey.
Yeah, what kind of volume generally do you see in terms of the number of people who are faced with this experience in our community?
Yeah, so we receive about 1,000 calls. Oh, I'm sorry, too many zeros. 100. We receive about 100 calls every month, and so what that translates to is about 1,000 people per year who are receiving direct services, and then another 1,000 people who receive our community education services every year.
Okay. And so I understand that during the stay-at-home order, you haven't seen a pickup of those calls yet, but I understand there is a belief that there is probably going to be a surge perhaps or increased in domestic violence as a result of that. Could you kind of explain why that thinking is, what you're anticipating?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is interesting to try and make predictions during such an unprecedented experience, right? But what we have to go on are the trends in domestic and sexual violence outreach, so people reaching out for services during other natural disasters or other times of community crisis. So what we tend to see during that time is that in the midst of the crisis, there's a decrease, a drop in people reaching out because they are coping with the crisis at hand. And then as soon as things start to abate or the world kind of starts to return to normal a little bit, then people have space on their to-do list to really add that request for services or reaching out for services or support. The COVID-19 crisis is unique because people are literally trapped in their homes with their abusive partners. And so that gives further explanation to why we're not hearing from people at an increased rate yet, is because they are, under the thumb of their abusive partner. They can't make a phone call without being overheard. They may not even be able to reach out for services over the internet because their abusers are monitoring their internet use and their phone use. So while most people are working remotely or not working, we do not anticipate to see a rise in calls. As soon as the shelter-in-place order starts to phase out, we know now it's not just going to be a complete lift of shelter-in-place all at once, but as soon as it starts to phase out, it's our educated guess that we will see an increase in calls as abusive partners go back to work, as victims and survivors go back to work. They'll have more free space to make the phone call and reach out for some help and support.
And you made an important point in some press I saw earlier about this not being an issue of people being more stressed, correct?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Ryan. That's a really common misconception about domestic violence, is that it is caused by stress or that domestic violence incidents increase at times of stress. So it's really important to recognize that stress is not a cause of violent behavior. And the easy way to understand that is that, when we get stressed out, most of us don't go abuse our intimate partners. There is a link between stress and an escalation of violence. So someone may be more violent when they are already feeling more powerless in their lives. But another thing to note is, times of economic downturn do tend to see an increase in domestic violence incidents, and people associate that with people being more stressed out because of the economic hardship. But it actually has more to do with a link with unemployment rates. And when people are unemployed, they have more time at home to be abusive towards their partners. So there is a link between unemployment and increases of domestic violence, but it doesn't have to do with people being stressed out. There's a lot of misunderstanding, misinformation out there about what causes abusive behavior. And most of the things that people think cause it are really just excuses that may occur at the same time, but there's no causal relationship there. So another example would be alcohol or drug use. There's no causal relationship between violent behavior and alcohol or drug use. Another example might be mental illness, of which there's also no causal relationship. So again, these things may be co-occurring, but they're really just excuses that abusers use to try and escape accountability for their behavior. Mm-hmm. So thanks for asking about that.
Yeah. And so if somebody's struggling with abuse, what are the avenues for them to reach out to you? And also, I imagine a lot of them have concerns about getting out safely. What do you do, or what do you recommend to ensure that they are able to get away safely and not suffer really bad abuse and trying to escape?
Right. That's such an important question. So one thing that's important for people to know, both in the community and survivors, is that leaving an abusive relationship increases your chances of danger and even homicide. So leaving an abusive relationship for most cases is more dangerous than staying. And for that reason, really intricate safety planning needs to happen. So the answer to your question, what can people do to leave safely, is a multi-pronged answer that's different for every person. And so what we do at the Abbey Shelter is called safety planning, where we really go through step by step, what are the unique characteristics of the abuse in that relationship, what are the resources available, all the way to what time of day is safest for you to leave, to what do you need to bring with you, what important documents do you need for you and your children, all the way down to where are you going to go and what are you going to do when your abusive partner tries to find you, which they almost always do. So that's a sample of the things that we would need to talk through with someone who is preparing to leave. It should be noted that many people who leave their abusive partners do not necessarily need shelter. They might have other safe places to go, and that doesn't mean that you don't need to call us, or that person doesn't need to call us. We would love to help talk through the details of safety planning with people. It is usually safer and better for people to not stay in shelter, meaning if you have a friend or a relative or someone in the community that you can stay with, it is way less isolating to be with that person than it is to be in shelter. And really the purpose of our shelter is for people who have nowhere else to go, or people who will not be safe anywhere else except for shelter. And so the process of planning to leave an abusive partner is made more difficult by the trauma and stress buzzing around in one's brain caused by the violence that they've been enduring. And so it can really be so beneficial to just call our helpline and have someone talk through the options with you, all the different things that you can think about and consider, help you make a list, help you get prepared. When people leave their abusive partners without preparation, it usually does not stick. And typically the barrier to preparation is the abuse. Right? So many people leave their partners many times before leaving permanently. And your chances of having a successful escape are greatly improved when you work with an advocate and do some safety planning with us.
Yeah, that's important to know. That's good information. And then last question, I guess. During this crisis, it seems the community's really stepped up for the Abbey Shelter. Could you speak to that and the support you've received?
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, the community really has stepped up. So first I'll talk about how the community has stepped up financially. We are receiving an uptick of donations from our website, which is really heartwarming, including from a couple of people who received services in the past 5 or 10 years and are inspired to repay. So that was really, really heartwarming. We received a generous grant from the Whitefish Community Foundation so that we could add an additional staff person in preparation for an increase in demand. And they are also helping us to pay for some hotel costs in the event of overflow at the shelter, or if someone needs a different type of living environment and the communal living environment at the shelter isn't going to work, so that we have hotel options for people. We also received a really generous gift from the Foley Family Charitable Foundation, which is deeply appreciated. The Oro y Plata Foundation stepped up for us. It is really going to make a difference right away in how we can serve our clients better. It's immediately going to help us increase services, which is excellent. And I also want to say, in addition to the fiscal support that we've received from our community, we've noticed that domestic violence is a high priority conversation in our community, contemplating how shelter in place will impact all of us. People are thinking about how folks will be fed, how kids will receive schooling, and how survivors of domestic violence will survive in their homes with their abusers. And we are not used to being at the forefront of people's minds as in our movement, or we're not used to our issue being a top issue. And it is now, and that's so validating and really encouraging as we do our work. And so in addition to the fiscal support, I want to express our gratitude at the Abbey Shelter for people just thinking about us and knowing that this is a really painful time for our clients, and holding that in your hearts. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You know, you're an amazing person, Hilary. I'm always impressed.
Oh, you too, Brian.
All you do in the community. So I really appreciate your work and the Abbey Shelter as a resource in the community. And thank you for coming to speak with me on this program. And good luck in the weeks ahead in providing your service for the community.
Great. Thanks so much, Ryan.
All right.